I have a unrelated matter scheduled that afternoon in a civil case, so we can go ahead and put in place the plan we talked about earlier of having Friday afternoons to work and catch up on matters. I know one juror has communicated that they have a doctor's appointment that they're trying to schedule for February 9th. I will make an inquiry of that juror. I think it's alternate number 2. I'll check with that juror. When we get to the end of the day, I'll just ask whether there's any way of shifting that to a Friday afternoon. I'm inclined to go ahead and inform the jurors that we will be taking this Friday and next Friday afternoons off so they can plan accordingly, and I'll inquire as to whether it's possible that he perhaps could shift that appointment to a Friday rather than a Tuesday. Anything else that we need to take up? All right, we'll call for the jurors, please. Gentlemen, further evidence for the state?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Your Honor, this time the state will call Ms. Jamea Ava to the stand.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Now please be seated.
All right, Mr. Waller.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Ava, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your name for the record for us?
Jeme Melinda Avent,
Can you spell your first name?
J-E-M-E.
Thank you, ma'am. And where do you live, Ms. Ava?
I live at 115 Penley Circle in Ramblewood.
Ramblewood. And how long have you lived at that address?
It's over 6 years.
And so you were living there in May of 2013?
Yes, I was.
And before we get into that, are you employed at this time?
I am.
What general line of work are you in, Ms. Ava?
I'm a real estate appraiser.
Let me talk to you a little bit about the area in which you live. That's off of Ramblewood. Can you kind of describe that neighborhood for the members of the jury in terms of, is it townhomes or single-family homes or apartments, or what's the general layout there?
All of the above. It's a townhome community, and there's single family in our subdivision, and then we're adjacent to the Allister apartments.
And what type of residence do you live in, Ms. Ava?
I live in one of the townhomes.
Ms. Ava, going back to May 14th, or I should say May 13th of 2013, did you have the opportunity to come into contact with the victim, Miss Melissa Huggins-Jones, on May 13th of 2013?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you knew Melissa prior to May 13th?
Of course. they had just moved to the Raleigh area, and they were taking a walk, and my daughter, who's the same age as Melissa's daughter, my daughter recognized her daughter from school, and they became friends, and Melissa and I were becoming friends as well.
So when you said they were taking walks around the neighborhood, Melissa and her daughter,
They would often stop over. I spent a lot of time outside in my yard, and they would often take walks, and they would stop by, and we would chat for half an hour or so.
and Melissa hadn't been in the neighborhood long. About how long had you known her?
Less than 2 weeks.
General demeanor of Melissa when you knew her? She seemed to be happy, sad?
Oh yeah, she's a very bubbly personality. Absolutely, she was a lovely person.
And you said your daughter was the same age as her daughter?
And they got along great.
What grade were they in together?
I believe they would have been in 3rd grade at that time.
So you had seen Melissa and Hannah out walking in the evenings prior to May 13th?
And there was several nights that we all hung outside and talked, and my daughter would like to show Hannah her room, and they would play inside while we talked outside some.
Going directly to the night of May 13th, 2013, did you have an opportunity to see Melissa and Hannah that night?
We did.
Tell us a little bit about that.
They were just taking their usual walk, and she and I struck up a conversation, and one of the things that she had mentioned to me was that she had some work functions, and that she was struggling to be at those functions because she didn't know a lot of people in the area, and I had offered to watch Hannah while she went to some various work functions, and we actually made arrangements for me to watch Hannah one night that week, and for Melissa was going to pick up my daughter from school and watch her until my husband got home from work on one of those nights as well.
And to be clear, this arrangement you made, this was a Sunday night. Do you recall which day it was that you were going to watch Hannah for her?
It was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I think it was a bank function that she had, and in the evening. And mine was on a Friday because I was heading down to the beach. I had friends I was meeting down there, and she was going to watch Blue, my daughter, until my husband got home from work.
And approximately what time was it when you first saw Melissa the night of the 13th on that Sunday night?
It was pretty late. It was probably 8:45 to 9 o'clock.
Sorry, Monday night. I got
Okay, the night before the incident.
Yes, ma'am.
It was probably, I would say, getting very close to 9 o'clock, if not 9.
And that's when you first saw her on that again Monday night. I apologize. I got my.
That's okay.
wrong.
And we chatted for at least a half an hour, and I remember that because it was a school night, and I knew that it was getting pretty late, and we had to wrap it up.
So about what time did Melissa leave your house?
9:30 or 10.
And what was the general kind of weather like that night? Nice night out. What were Hannah and your daughter doing that night while you and Melissa were talking?
They were running around upstairs, and we just heard them sort of chasing each other inside the house, and they played outside as well.
And then when you realized it was a school night and everybody had to go home, you and Melissa parted ways at that point. Did you talk with her either in person or on telephone or via text any that night?
I honestly don't remember.
The next morning, did you become aware that something had happened to Melissa?
Yes, sir.
How did you become aware that she'd been murdered?
When I was driving my daughter to school, I noticed all the tape and the police and other vehicles outside the apartment where she lived. And on the way home, after I dropped my daughter off, I stopped to ask about it, and the police didn't offer any information, but I saw a young lady sitting on the curb out there who was clearly upset, and she told me what had happened.
When you left Melissa, or when Melissa left you prior night, that Monday night, did she tell you anything about any scared of anybody, concerned about anybody, nervous in any way about going back to her apartment?
No, not at all. She seemed really happy.
Did something happen to you and your family that same night, Miss Ava?
Yes, my husband's car was broken into, along with others in the neighborhood.
And again, this is the neighborhood off of Alistair Drive?
That's right, adjacent to the apartments.
Your husband, was he home at the time that that Melissa was there with you with Hannah?
No, he didn't come home till about 10 o'clock that night.
And then when did he discover that his car had been broken into?
The next morning when he went to work about 9.
Did you and your husband make the officers aware of the car break-in as well as your conversation with Melissa that evening?
We did when the detective came over that night to talk to me, and somebody talked to him separately about the car break-in, because we had also found out that many cars had been broken into that evening, so they did talk to him about that.
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
Ms. Avon, I'm going to show you what's been previously introduced to State's Exhibit Number 5. Show the direction here. Can you just kind of, this is the area around the Allister Apartments in Ramblewood and all, as it appeared in May of 2013 or close to May of 2013. Can you demonstrate on this poster board where your residence is?
This would be my residence right here.
And your car, was it in a garage or a parking deck, or what? Where did you park your car?
We park both cars in the driveway.
In the driveway. And so this was your residence,
Mm-hmm.
your townhome, and then Melissa was up here at.
That's right.
Thank you, ma'am. If I may have just a moment, Sharon.
Yes, sir.
Didn't realize his car had been broken into.
The next morning when he went to work.
What time does he go to work?
That morning it was about 9.
So his car was broken into sometime between 10 p.m. and 9 a.m.
That's right.
Thank you, Ms. Avon. I don't have any further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination. All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Any objection to this witness being released? Ma'am, you're released from your subpoena and you are free to go. Further evidence for the state?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the state would call Ms. Esther Hall to the stand.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you, ma'am. Please be seated.
Mr. Wiley?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hall, good afternoon, ma'am. Will you please state your name for the record?
Esther Hall,
And can you spell your first name for us, please?
Esther.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Hall, where do you live?
I live at Bishop's Park.
And how long have you lived at that address?
A year.
A year. Prior to living at Bishop's Park, where did you live?
At 340 Allister Drive.
And that's an area around the Allister Apartments.
It is.
That we've been talking about. And prior to moving to Bishop's Park, how long did you live at the Allister Drive?
3 years.
Are you employed, Ms. Hall?
I am.
How are you employed?
I'm the executive director of NC Leaf.
And is that an organization that works with attorneys?
It's a nonprofit, and we give loan repayment assistance to public interest attorneys.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Hall, I want to turn your attention to Monday, May 13th, in the late evening hours, the nighttime. Were you at your residence on Allister Drive that night?
Yes, I lived in a first floor unit, 109.
And can you kind of describe for us what, you mentioned you lived in a unit. Is that a townhome?
A condominium,
condo?
first floor condominium.
And that general neighborhood that you lived in, can you kind of describe that for us in terms of, was it houses, townhomes, condos, a mix?
There's a 24-unit condominium building, and across from that, a row of townhomes. And then other townhomes fill out the rest of the area leading up Allister to the new apartment building.
The Allister apartments that we've been discussing. And during the nighttime hours of May 13th, did you happen to see something unusual happening outside of your window?
I did. I woke up rather unexpectedly. I had fallen asleep on the couch, and I got up and walked to my bedroom window, and I don't know why, but I peeked through the blinds and observed a burglary in process directly across the road from me.
And approximately what time was this, Ms.
I think
Hall?
about midnight.
Around midnight? And you said it was a burglary. Was someone going into a residence, or were they going into a car? What exactly
So,
did you see?
right across from my bedroom window is in the townhomes, a fellow lived with a small red Miata convertible. And I observed a tall gentleman with a long flashlight burglarizing the car.
So he was breaking into the car.
Yes.
That night. And how were you able to see clearly this incident occurring?
There's a street light that directly illuminates the area, so it was easy for me to see.
And did you know the neighbor that looked like their car was being broken into?
Just as an acquaintance, just coming and going to and from work.
And I guess a better way to ask it didn't appear to be the owner of the car going into it.
Definitely a height difference, yes.
Okay, all right. Could you describe this individual that you saw going into the red Miata?
Yes, a very tall African-American male, dressed all in black, and he had a long-handled flashlight that he was using to look through the car, and a black, some sort of nylon fabric that appeared to have things in it.
Something like a bag, or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it looked like this person had a bag as they were going.
Yes.
And Ms. Hall, just do me a little bit of a favor. Just make sure you keep your voice up, and you can use the
Okay, thank you.
microphone there, just so that all the jurors can hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So this bag, where was the bag on the person?
It was, he was holding it.
Down to his side.
Mm-hmm. So the flashlight in one hand and the bag, I believe in the right hand, and the bag in the other hand.
Ms. Hall, when you saw this, did you notice anyone else around him?
Yes, as I mentioned, there's a street light that does amplify the street area, and there was a woman standing there in the middle of the road. And once I realized that the burglary was in process, it occurred to me that she was probably some sort of lookout.
Can you describe this individual?
Yes, medium height female, dressed in black. The two outstanding features were very bright white tennis shoes and a very bright white band, like a ski band, around her head.
And you mentioned the person going into the car was African American?
Yes.
Could you tell what race the female was?
I'm unclear.
White, black, Hispanic, just not sure.
White or light-skinned African American.
And what was it? You said this person appeared to be a lookout. What was she doing?
Well, she was standing in the middle of the road observing. And then shortly, the gentleman was burglarizing the car, and she was standing there. A third person came around around the townhome, and he also had a black bag full of things.
Then, and just before we move on to this third person, the guy that was in the car, when you say he was burglarizing the car, did you see him like break a window?
No, he had the long flashlight and he was shining it through the interior of the car as though he were looking for things.
So it appeared the car was open in some way.
Yes. I did not see broken glass.
All right, overruled.
The car.
The door was open and he was shining the light, but I did not see glass or the window slit.
The third person that you saw, you said it also appeared they also had a bag?
Yes.
And how were they dressed?
Orange shorts and a blue jacket.
And what did you see this individual do when he came around the town hall?
He just joined up with the others, and at that point, I was on the phone to the police. I wanted to get a description of the folks, but I was quickly dialing 911.
The individual that you saw coming around the townhome, the third individual, you said it was a male.
Mm-hmm.
How else would you describe this individual?
Darker skin, African American or Hispanic, probably about 6 feet, broader shoulders.
The two African American males that you saw, were they roughly the same height, build, or any differences?
One tall and thin, but the second fellow had broader shoulders than the first.
The second fellow that
The
came.
one that came around the side of the building.
Now, Ms. Hall, you said that you called 911. Okay, and did you get a response?
Yes,
Did they-
yes. The police came immediately, and I was able to give my description.
I take it during the interim that the two men and females, they left the area before.
They did, but I was not able to see the direction.
Did they run away in a startled manner, or did they just kind of move on?
I'm not able to answer that accurately because I don't know.
In any event, they were gone before.
They were gone by the time the officer got there.
And did a police officer come to your door?
Yes.
And did you tell them what you'd seen there that night?
Yes.
Ms. Hall, was your car broken into, or your home broken into?
My car was broken into.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did you find that out?
My GPS was missing. So I discovered it when I checked my car.
And anything else going out of the car that you noticed?
It's sort of embarrassing. A bag of Cheetos.
It's fine. If it was taken, it was taken. And the manner in which the individuals got into your car.
It was unlocked. My fault.
So no broken glass, the car wasn't
No.
pried open in any way.
No.
When did you discover that your car had been broken into as well, Ms. Hall?
When I saw the bag and the fellow across the way in the red Miata, I realized that I had failed to lock my car and immediately decided that my GPS was most likely in that bag.
Your
Sure enough,
GPS
that was
on.
correct, yes.
Did you at any point run outside of your home and try to confront these individuals, Ms. Hall, or go check to make sure your car wasn't?
I went to check on my own car, but they were already out of the area.
Were the police there yet when you?
It was right before the police arrived.
So you gave a description to the police?
I did.
officers. About what time was it when the police arrived to your
I
apartment?
think it was shortly after midnight, but it was an immediate response.
And did you notice anything else unusual that night, ma'am?
I did not.
And did you become aware that other cars in the neighborhood had been broken into as well?
I was not aware of that particular evening. I didn't learn about that till the next morning.
And several of your neighbors had cars broken into?
Yes.
If I may have just a moment. Sean.
Yes.
Oh, I don't have any further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hall, I'm going to show you an overview map. This is not exactly how the area looks now, but do you recognize what this is a map of?
Yes.
And this is what was previously marked, as I should have been saying before, States Exhibit 5.
Okay.
So can you just tell us quickly that I know you recognize this, but what is this map of?
So it's a map of what you would call the Ramblewood complex with the condominiums and the townhomes.
And can you show us where on this map your address is?
Sort of looking upside down, so I'm not.
So again, this is several years ago.
Yes, and
Part
it
of
looks
was
very
built.
different.
So Alistair is down here, and then
Right.
it reconnects up here.
Right, I think this is the condo building, and the townhomes are over here, and there's a field at that point before the apartments were built.
And do you live in the condos or these townhomes?
I lived at 109, which is the first floor of the condos,
Okay.
and I had a direct line of vision to the townhomes.
This is across Alistair. And your car was parked, is there a parking?
Right in front of there's parking behind and in front of the building,
Okay, and so your car was somewhere out in this area behind the building?
in front of the building. Well, depends on if, facing the townhomes,
I've got it.
front of the building.
Between your condominium and the townhouses that you were looking at, there's a small parking area and your car was?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
Anything further, Ms. D, for this witness? Any redirect?
Very briefly, Ms. Hall, did you become aware of the homicide that had occurred in the apartment complex?
Yes.
Okay. How far is that building from your condo?
It's, it would be the entire length of Allister Drive.
Is that a mile, less than a mile?
Less than a mile.
So less than a mile away. If you're walking it, how long would it take you to walk from that building to your condo?
8 to 10 minutes max.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Anything further? Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. May this. All right. Ms. Hall, you're released from your subpoena and you are free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further evidence for the state?
Your Honor, this time the state would call Ms. Claire Reynolds to the stand.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Please be seated.
Mr. Waller.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Reynolds, good afternoon.
Hi,
Will you please state your name for the record?
Claire Reynolds
And Ms. Reynolds, where do you live?
on Allister Drive.
And how long have you lived there on Allister Drive?
I believe I bought my condo in July of 2012, but I'm not exact. I would have to think about it a moment, but I think July 2012.
So you were residing there in May of 2013.
Yes.
And Reynolds, do you know Miss Esther Hall or Esther Hall?
Yes,
She a neighbor of yours?
she was at the time.
How about Janae Avent? Do you know her?
I do not. I know her husband. I do not know her.
Miss Reynolds, what type of work are you involved in at this time?
I'm a full-time graduate student right now, so I'm not really working, but I'm also a registered nurse.
And what type of a graduate degree are you pursuing?
I'm studying to be a nurse practitioner.
13th and into the morning hours of May 14th of 2013, okay? During that night, you said that you live in a condo. Do you live in a condo with Miss Hall or in the same building as Miss Hall?
Yes, she was a floor below me.
So you're on the second floor.
Mhm.
When did you get home that night?
I don't recall exactly, but normally during the weeknight, it would have been between 8 and 9 p.m.
Where did you park?
in my parking garage.
And describe that for us. Is there different places where you can park there around your condo?
There is a parking lot, but you can park outside if you want or in the garage, and I choose to normally park in the garage unless I know I'm going to just be in for a minute. But if I'm overnight, I'll pull in the garage, and you just go in, the gate opens, and then it closes behind you, and then you go up into the condo.
So it's a secure parking garage?
We thought so, yes.
Okay. How did you get in there? Or how would a person get in there?
You have to have a sticker on your windshield.
And then the gate opens automatically. And so you went and you parked in that garage that night? Mm-hmm. And you said between 8 and 9 p.m.?
I believe approximately.
When you got out of the car, what were you doing?
I think I had just gone to the grocery store because that's what I normally did on Monday nights. And I think I was carrying a bunch of groceries,
And what did that cause you to do?
not lock my car.
And are you sure that you didn't lock your car that night?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Did you go in the house at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever go back out to your car into the parking lot that night?
No, not until work the next morning.
What time did you go to your car the morning of, I guess, May 14th at this point?
I normally left, it would have been somewhere between 7:15 and 7:30 a.m., but I'm not entirely sure.
When you got to your car, what did you notice?
There was stuff everywhere in the seat. And I was confused because there was just stuff thrown everywhere. And I just sat there for a second and kind of tried to figure out why it was like that.
What did you think at that
And
point
then
happened?
first I thought maybe an animal had gotten in my car because there was no broken window or anything. And then I kind of thought about it. Screen because they didn't want pieces of glass coming out.
And when you turned that iPod on, was there any way to identify it as your iPod? Did it say your name?
It may have said like Claire's, I don't remember the names of the playlist, but it may have had my name in one of the playlists. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that.
And besides the iPod itself, were any accessories missing? The cord?
Not that I noticed at the time, but it could have been. I don't remember.
May I approach the administrator?
Yes, sir.
Actually, may I approach Madam Clerk first? All right, Ms. Reynolds, I'm going to approach you with what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 14. State's Exhibit 14 is a manila envelope, is that correct? Is that what that is? Now I'm going to remove the contents of State's Exhibit 14. I'm going to label one State's Exhibit 14A. To the best of my ability, I'm going to label one item as State's Exhibit 14B. All right, starting with 14A, if you'll take a look at 14A and tell me if you recognize what that is.
Yep, this is definitely mine.
And when you say it's definitely yours, can you tell me how you know it's definitely yours?
Because of the way the screen is shattered and how the Scotch tape is on it.
And have you seen that iPod since May 14th or May 13th of 2013?
Mm-mm.
Make sure, for the court reporter, just make sure you say yes or no.
No, I have not. I've thought about it and I'd like it back.
So this was the iPod that was missing from your car then?
Yes.
And then State's Exhibit 14B, what does that appear to be?
A car, or probably a charger that I had it plugged into. I can't say for certain it's mine, but it could have been in there.
Does it look like the adapter? Does it?
Yeah, I mean, it fits that, so I'm assuming it's mine, but I don't know for sure.
Pretty generic.
Yeah.
Certified cord. The cracks and the damage to State's Exhibit 14A, they were already present.
Yes, I dropped it a few weeks prior to that.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, Ms. Reynolds, I'm also going to show you State's Exhibit 5. And if you need to stand up or anything, that's fine. But can you briefly kind of show the members of the jury where you live here in this complex?
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Are those? It looks so different. Sorry. I live right here in those condos.
So kind of at the intersection or the corner here of Penley Circle and Allister
Yeah,
Drive.
but mine faces this way.
And Grant, this photograph's from 2013. And are there now?
Yeah, there's apartments all in there because there's like some woods I can't really tell, but yeah, that's all developed now.
And the parking deck where you had your car, can you show us where that would have been directly under your condo?
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure you say yes or no.
Oh yes, sorry.
So you're pointing to that condo, and there's a parking deck underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
The victim, Miss Melissa Huggins-Jones, lived in this building. How far away is that building from your condo, Miss Reynolds? Roughly speaking.
I'd say a quarter of a mile, half a mile,
And do
or a
you
quarter of a mile. I'm not sure.
less than a mile?
Yeah.
And do you ever walk up that direction or run up that direction?
Yes.
About how
But-
long does it take you to walk or run up there?
2 minutes, 1 minute to 2 minutes.
If you're running.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. If I may have just a moment.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions at this time, Your Honor?
1 minute, Ms. Reynolds. Cross-examination, Ms. D.
If I could, have it?
Yes, ma'am.
You lived in the same building as Miss Ethel Hall, right?
Yes.
When she was still living there? So if we're picking back up what was marked as State's Exhibit 5, I should remember this by now, 5. So that's a multi-unit condominium building?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
to use that parking deck that you were describing, that's underneath the building?
Yes.
And so you pull up behind and there's sort of a parking area behind, and then you can access the deck that's underneath the building from that rear parking area?
Yes.
So if you look at this again, do you think that that might be the rear parking area and this might be that condominium building?
Oh yes, I was mistaken. I'm sorry.
So
Yeah, you're right. It was right there.
Right. So that larger
Yeah.
building that's right here at the edge of where the construction site was then is the condominium building that you live in?
Yes.
And the entrance to the underground parking area is from that back lot?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
Any redirect?
No, sir.
All right, ma'am, you may step down. Any objection to this witness being released? Ma'am, you're released from your subpoena and you're free to go. Thank you, ma'am. Further evidence for the state?
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time we call Detective Jerry Falk to the stand.
Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please be seated.
Mr. Waller?
Detective Falk, good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Jerry Falk,
And Detective Falk, how are you employed, sir?
employed as a detective with the City of Raleigh Police Department.
How long have you been with the Raleigh Police Department total?
17 years.
And Detective Falk, I've called you Detective Falk. What duties and responsibilities do you have as a detective with the Raleigh Police Department?
I'm assigned to one of 2 homicide units within the investigative division of the Raleigh Police Department. There's a total of 10 detectives and 2 sergeants assigned to the homicide unit
How long have you been a detective?
since 2004.
And when you became a detective in 2004, did you go directly to the homicide unit, or were you assigned to another unit within the Raleigh Police Department?
I was assigned to another unit first and went to the homicide unit in 2008.
So you've been with the homicide unit that long?
Yes,
Since
sir.
2008?
Mhm.
What was the other unit you were assigned to?
I was in general investigations and on the robbery unit.
Detective Falk, can you tell us a little bit about kind of what the duties of a homicide detective are in terms of how they are different from a patrol officer such as Officer Green that we may have heard from earlier? What do you do in a case?
Sure, we're assigned, of course, cases to follow up on, and on the homicide unit, those cases include, of course, homicides, but we also are involved in deceased person cases, suicides, accidental deaths, as well as some missing person cases and some cases of found bodies, unidentified cases.
How many cases would you say you've worked since becoming a homicide detective in 2008, roughly?
Probably roughly been involved in probably 50 homicide cases.
How many?
Probably 50 homicide
50.
cases.
Thank you, sir. Detective Falk, I want to turn your attention to the morning hours of May 14th of 2013. On May 14th, 2013, were you a Raleigh detective on duty, duly sworn, and so employed?
Yes.
And sir, did you have the opportunity to become involved in an investigation, a homicide investigation that was occurring at the Allister Apartments that morning?
Yes, sir, I did.
Tell us a little bit about how you became involved in that investigation.
I first got a call from a coworker, Detective Morse, who notified me of a what appeared to be a murder at the address of 441 Allister Drive. I responded to the police station on Atlantic Avenue, and just to get a initial briefing as far as the initial investigation of the case.
And Detective Falk, were you the lead investigator on this homicide, or do you, as a unit, kind of work together and sharing responsibilities? How does that work?
I was not the lead investigator, and yes, we typically there's 5 detectives assigned to one unit, and we work together as a team, as well as some other detectives that may be assigned to some other violent crime units assisting in the investigation. But typically the whole homicide unit of 5 works together on one case at a time.
And you said you initially went to a briefing at Atlantic Avenue.
Basically, it wasn't an official briefing, but just to see what the initial investigation was, what information we had in the beginning.
And what was the general information you had at this point, Detective Falk, or you were made aware of at this point?
The initial information was that there was a lady who had been identified as Melissa Huggins-Jones, who lived at the address of 441 Apartment 101 Allister Drive, and that her daughter had found her, woke up, found her deceased, alerted some nearby construction workers, and who called 911. And at the scene, it appeared that the apartment had been broken into, as well as an apartment below her apartment. And the apartment below her apartment was used as an office for that apartment complex.
And upon being relayed this information, what was your first duty in regards to this case, or responsibility?
It also came to light early on that in that same during that same night there were several car break-ins right in the immediate area of the crime scene around Allister Drive. So I was tasked or to follow up on that information or those break-ins, thinking that those car break-ins may be related to the apartment break-in and the murder that happened at Allister Drive.
And how close were these car break-ins in relation to the homicide scene?
Right in the same area. I think there were some on Allister Drive as well, actually on the same street as the murder.
And how did you go about investigating these car break-ins, sir?
There were several other, or at least a couple other detectives who were also working on the car break-ins. But I went out to the scene, touched base with those detectives as well as some patrol units, and just tried to get as much information and make sure that, I guess, things were done how they should be, thinking that they could possibly be related to the murder.
And when we say car break-ins, Detective Falk, are we talking about cars in which there's glass shattered everywhere, or what was the general scene when you were investigating?
In this case, I think it was more just they were checking open or unlocked car doors. So I don't recall specifically right now about broken windows and that sort of thing. I think the main thing was just checking unlocked car doors.
During the course of your investigation of these car break-ins, how many car break-ins did you find there in that Allister Drive area?
There were 11.
And those 11 car break-ins were also on Penley Circle and then Allister Drive, is that correct, sir?
Correct.
How did you go about following up with this, with these car break-ins?
I went to each of them, and actually there was another detective, Detective Gibney, and I went to each of the break-ins to see if there was anything that could be done as far as any potential follow-up, what items were stolen, to see if they could be followed up on, to see if there was any kind of forensic work that needed to be done as far as fingerprints or tool marks, that sort of thing. Also tried to touch base with the vehicle owners, make sure, or if I didn't do it personally, to make sure that someone had interviewed the owners of the vehicles.
The three ladies that have testified here before you, Esther Hall, Jamae Avent, and Claire Reynolds, were those three of the owners of vehicles that you contacted, or at least had other detectives contact?
Yes, sir.
Specifically in regards to Ms. Hall, what did you learn about her information that she provided? What information did she provide regarding her car break-in?
She said that she had called 911 at approximately 12:43 a.m. She reported that two males and a female were breaking into cars. She provided a description of those people, it was consistent with another description of someone else who had reported seeing some suspicious people in the area that same night.
You know what time?
Would this be an appropriate time to consider an instruction on corroboration?
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, the testimony you're hearing is an out-of-court statement, and it's not being received, and you're not to consider it for the truth of what was said in the out-of-court statement that's being reported here, but rather you're solely to consider it for the purposes of corroborating or impeaching a witness who has already testified in this case. You may continue, sir.
The suspicious person call. Do you have a recollection or as to what time that suspicious person call went out?
I spoke with the person who made that call, and he estimated it was about 12:15 a.m.
Then Jamae Avent, one of the ladies that just testified a moment ago, did you speak with her as well, sir?
I did.
What did she relate to?
She just told me basically about her relationship with the victim in this case, Melissa Jones. She had also talked about or said that she saw Melissa the day prior to this, that night prior, and that Melissa was visiting at her house.
And at this point, Detective Falk, as you said, you kind of have a dual investigation going on here in determining whether or not these car break-ins are related to the homicide that happened in the apartment complex.
Right.
So you're trying to gather information on both at this point.
Right.
And then how about Miss Miss Claire Reynolds, did you speak with her or have someone else speak with her?
I did, and her car was parked in a parking deck, which was located at 340 Allister Drive. She said that it was broken into, that the car she thought was unlocked, and that the property that was stolen was a purple iPod with black earbuds, and she described the iPod as having a cracked face.
This parking deck that she mentioned, Miss Reynolds mentioned, did you look at that parking deck or go out to that parking deck?
Yes, sir.
What is that? Describe that parking deck for us, sir.
As I recall, there was one entryway. There was a gate, kind of a wrought iron type gate. You had to have an access to it. Once we were actually inside the parking deck, I don't recall the exact number, but approximately 50 cars could fit in there.
50.
Yes, sir.
And when you were looking in that parking deck, did you notice anything that was out of the ordinary about the gate and the security there?
Two of the vertical rods on the gate had been kind of pulled apart or stretched apart somehow, enough for someone. We were thinking that was the point of entry because that damage was not there prior to, and enough to allow someone to go through those two.
And could you tell, was there any markings on the bars there?
There was a tool mark of some sort, or what appeared to be a tool mark on one of the rods there.
And to be clear, this gate is the gate leading into the parking deck that Miss Reynolds had her vehicle parked in?
Yes, sir.
Did you notice any other cars broken into there, or see any other cars broken into there in the parking deck?
There were 2 cars in the parking deck that were broken into.
Anything else that you saw there, Detective Falk?
No, sir.
Two cars in addition to Miss Reynolds, or 2 including Miss Reynolds?
2 including. Miss Reynolds drove a black Toyota, and then there was a white Toyota Prius that was also broken into.
After looking in the parking deck, what did you do at that point, Detective Falk?
We'll go ahead and break for the afternoon now and just pick up at that point tomorrow morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to recess for the afternoon, resume at 9:30. I'll remind the jurors to follow all the rules and instructions, not talk with anybody about this case or allow anyone to talk about this case in your presence. Don't form or express any opinions on the outcome. No media or independent investigation of these matters, and no conversations with parties, witnesses, or lawyers. I can tell you just some scheduling matters for you. This Friday, we will recess at 1 o'clock, and so you can plan to have the afternoon off. We'll have a busy week up to that point, so 1 o'clock Friday will be the time that we will recess, and then also next Friday, the 12th, at 1 o'clock, we will recess, so you can plan accordingly. I would ask alternate juror number 2, you passed a note to the bailiff about an appointment you're trying to schedule. And so if you could stick around for a few moments, let me talk with you about that appointment and just see what arrangements need to be made about that. So if you could just, after everyone has left, just resume your seat and we'll talk about that for a moment. All right. Other jurors, please leave your notepads in your chairs and gather in the deliberation room at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Everyone else, please remain seated.